Welcome to the Champs App podcast. Champs App is your recruiting and development copilot. If you are a player, parent, or coach, make sure to check out more content and tools to help navigate the world of youth hockey at champs.app. Also, if you've listened to the Champs App podcast in the past and it has helped you with your recruiting or hockey development, please tell your teammates and friends about Champs App. It would be even better if you subscribe to the podcast and review or rate us on whichever platform you're listening to or watching us on. On today's episode, I talk with Makenna Newkirk, assistant coach with the Penn State women's hockey program. We cover a lot of territory, including youth and prep school hockey, Ivy League versus scholarship schools, what it's like to play at Penn State, and of course, lots of information about the recruiting process. This was a highly informative conversation with Makenna, so please enjoy. Before we get to this amazing episode, most folks don't know all the great ways that Champs App can be your hockey recruiting and development co-pilot. So we thought we'd highlight different areas of Champs App in each episode. Here are 5 things you should know about creating a free, beautiful Champs App profile to help with your recruiting and networking. 1. Think of your Champs App profile as your online hockey resume. No matter your hockey role, whether you are a player, team coach, parent, development coach, or advisor, you can control how you present your hockey experience and different parts of your profile, like your academic information, achievements, highlight videos, stats, and game schedule. 2, once you create your profile, you can share your profile with anyone to help with your recruiting process. You can use your profile as a first point of contact between you and a potential team coach. 3, after you complete your profile, you can build your hockey network. If you are a player, you can create a direct connection similar to LinkedIn with college, prep, and youth coaches and get on their radar. We have over 100 NCAA coaches with verified Champs App accounts to connect with. 4, when you connect with a coach, they will automatically get notified when you have an upcoming game, add a video, or change teams. 5, you can add key contacts to your profile, like your current coach, parents, skills coaches, and advisors. This way, coaches can check your references and learn more about you. So visit www.champs.app and create your free, beautiful hockey profile today. I'm very excited to have on the podcast Makenna Newkirk, assistant coach with the Penn State Nittany Lions. Originally from Scottsdale, Arizona, Makenna played club hockey in Colorado and Pittsburgh before going to prep school at Pomfret. She then played 4 years at Boston College, where she was a captain in her last 2 seasons and ranks in the top 10 in program history for goals, assists, and points. She then played a couple of seasons with the PWHPA, while at the same time starting her coaching career with Milton Academy and Naha. Makenna then moved on to the college ranks at Brown and now Penn State, where she was entering her 3rd season. Welcome to the podcast, Makenna.
Hello, thanks for having me.
We are
Penn State.
all right. Gotta have to get
You
that
got
out
it
of the
down.
way. So one of my kids' previous coaches was a big Penn State person, and every time I walk into the rink and say "we are," and so I get that back from him. All right, so why don't we start off like we do all of our guests, and just tell us how you started playing hockey in the desert.
Yeah, so I guess kind of a funny story. Like my mom's from Missouri, dad's from California. So neither of them had any experience with hockey growing up. And so for me, I played a ton of different sports when I was, pretty young. My mom was a basketball player, dad football, baseball, and so they kind of threw me into everything. But again, growing up in Scottsdale, Arizona, the best thing to do during the summers with the heat was obviously to go to the ice rink, and a lot of birthday parties were like, the little learn to skate programs and just birthday parties at the rink. And so my mom wanted me to get a little foundation and learn how to skate. And so I didn't hurt myself at the birthday parties, and, she can enjoy her time and not have to worry about me falling and getting up and all that. So as I was getting picked up from one of my learn to play programs, my dad picked me up and we were walking out and I saw people playing hockey on the other sheet. And so I kept nagging him, trying to get me to let me learn how to play hockey from there. And, finally he gave in, and pretty much the rest is history. I fell in love with it. There was one girls hockey program growing up. And so I joined that at the age of 9. Some of my best friends still to today were on that team. And so we have a really tight connection down in Arizona still, and try to get back home as much as I can. But yeah, pretty unique. It just fell in my lap, and, it worked out in my favor too. I think every game was a good game for them. They couldn't coach me up or say anything too poorly about it, but it's just a great story, and absolutely love the sport from there.
Perfect. Now, a previous guest, Lindsay Fry, who played on the Olympic team, she was just a few years older than you, and she also went and played in Colorado before, heading east. I'm just curious, were you familiar with her path, and was that something that you kind of patterned yourself after?
Yeah, definitely. Her and Erin Wente, I think, were two people that I definitely looked up to. For us, we all grew up in the same organization, Arizona Select. So Rick Van Fleet was a huge catalyst for women's ice hockey in Arizona at that time. And so from there, Gail Shalou took over. She went to Providence and kind of helped form, a really high-end elite team for us in Arizona. We went to our first nationals from there at U14 level, which was amazing. And then unfortunately from there, it kind of got to the point where either I had to move on to play or kind of continue in Arizona. And I think for me at the age of like 13 or so, that's when I realized I really want to go in all in on the sport and really challenge myself. And so that's when I started playing in Colorado. Lindsay was definitely one of those people who had done it before me, and it seemed to work out for her pretty well. So took that leap of faith. And then from there, I went to Pittsburgh for about 3, 4 years after that. So it's definitely nerve-wracking leaving home at a young age, especially from Arizona, but, I think my parents gave me a lot of trust and, allowed me to grow up within the airports and traveling with different families and, kind of the connections we made through there, but, yeah, certainly Lindsay Fry was, an awesome person to be able to look up to, and now, one of my good friends and someone we definitely chit-chat here and there throughout the season, so great to have her in my corner too.
Beautiful. And Chill, she's now that the Coyotes are gone, she's helping out the Kachinas a lot more and
Yep.
making sure that that program is going to continue to thrive in Arizona. So I'm curious. You did 3 or 4 years, if not 5 years, of club hockey, but then you went to New England Prep. How did you make that decision? And how did you feel about your prep school experience?
Yeah, and growing up in Arizona, Rocky Mountain District Camp was always really important for us. And so not only to get involved with USA Hockey, but we were really fortunate. We had people like Krista Talbot Saifu, who was a Williston coach at the time. And,
And
it's
also
crazy.
a previous guest on this podcast.
There you go. But she's known me for, God, probably 18 years now. And so, we had people like her who came and kind of exposed us to the prep schools. We had Kristen Steele, who was a college coach, and, she was with me through that too. And so you have these people in your life that kind of steer you in one way or the other without them really knowing it. And so I think with Krista, it allowed me to kind of realize prep school would be a great option. I love playing other sports. I was able to play softball and soccer as well at Pomfret. And, it came down to Williston and Pomfret for me. And I had a couple friends at both schools. And ultimately, I chose Pomfret. Just it felt like a better fit for me. But it was awesome. It allowed me to grow a ton as a person. Again, continue to grow up. But I think financially for my family, it made most sense. I was in one place. I had everything at my fingertips. Bruce Para was my advisor there. He was the athletic director, and so he'd open up the rink for me in the mornings, let me go skate and do skills and shoot, close it back up for me. So it just allowed me to grow as a person and have those resources right in front of me.
Well, Krista Talbot Seifert must have been disappointed that you turned her down to not go to
I know
Wilson,
she, yeah,
Northampton. And it's amazing. Kristen Steele, I don't think I've ever been to a USA Hockey event where she wasn't at. I mean, she is the recruiting and USA Hockey like guru. Every single, I mean, and she's been doing it for years. I mean, I think she's been at Connecticut College for over 20 years, if I remember
yeah, she's
correctly.
amazing.
All right. So, how did you end up at Boston College?
Yeah, it's funny, like, now being on the coaching side, and June 15th is obviously a huge day for us now, but when I was going through it, it used to be September 1, and so that day happened. I think, I got a good amount of outreach from different other schools, and, I was able to kinda go through my process and figure out, start to narrow it down, but I went on a ton of visits, a lot of unofficial visits with my parents, and just tried to figure out, do I want a city? Do I want a rural school? Do I want big school, small school, whatever it may be? And then, kind of out of left field, BC got into the picture, and I absolutely loved it. For whatever reason, I had like this extremely small shirt at home that said Boston College Hockey. So I assume from one of those tournament trips when I was growing up, we went and did a visit, and I just fell in love with it from an early age. And so as I was going through the process, again, I continued to look at a lot of different schools, and BC always just was in the back of my mind. And so for me, the decision was pretty easy once they did offer. But it was one of those schools that I continuously just compared other schools to. And so I think deep down, I knew that was the right decision for me.
Perfect. Now you said you visited the school, and just before we hit record, I mentioned that I drove through campus a couple of weeks ago, and maybe just talk about how beautiful the Boston College campus is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at the same time, like, it is absolutely gorgeous. It's one of those schools that the buildings, you get that campus feel outside of Boston. As much as I love Penn State now, like BC is definitely a home to me, and Kinger and Court made it feel like a home from the moment I stepped on campus. So I think for me, my family, all the teammates, it's an awesome school.
Perfect. And just so folks know who you're referring to, Katie Green Crowley, who's the head
Yep.
coach, and then Courtney Kennedy, who's now moved on um, to the professional ranks. I'm not exactly sure which team. And so those were your coaches back then. Talk to me about the Bean Pot. And do you wish you could play in the Bean Pot today, now that they're playing, at the TD America Bank Center?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Beanpot was definitely one of those trophies you want, and it's always a February, so it's almost like you're gearing up for the end of your season, getting into playoff time, and so it was almost one of those opportunities where you put it all out there, see what kind of team you have before you really get into like the regular season championships and then also the tournament championships. So Beanpot was amazing. I was fortunate to win 3 of them, lost our senior year, but it's awesome. It was great when I was there because you get to see, we would host it, BU would host it, Harvard, Northeastern, etc. But I think now having it at the Bruins' home, it allows the whole city of Boston to really get on board for it. And, the turnout that they had last year is unbelievable. So hopefully they just keep that going.
Beautiful. Now, so we're not going to relive your national championship game, because I know it didn't work out as well you did. But obviously that was kind of near the peak of Boston College, because they haven't been able to kind of achieve that level as much recently. So maybe just talk about then moving on to pro hockey, and you did a couple of years. You spent a couple of years with the PWHPA. Maybe just talk about that experience, and how do you feel about being just a few years too early to play in the PWHA?
Yeah, someone actually asked me the other day, if that was what it was today, like would I still be playing? And absolutely, I think I'd still be playing if the PW was as, the foundation was as compact as it is right now. But yeah, coming out of college, it was one of those things where, I knew I still had a lot to give. I wasn't ready to stop playing at any point. And so, being able to play with some of my best friends, and it was cool too, like in the PWHPA, Abby Rock and all these players that you kind of grow up playing with, and finally getting back and playing on the same team with them. Kessel, Niter, you can pretty much name any of them. It was fun to go from like national team camps into a professional league and be able to kind of showcase your skill with them and get back in the setting and the locker room setting. Truly, it's a lot of fun to be around those girls. So I think for me, it was a lot of the timing piece is unfortunate. I think they were able to kind of stick with it. For me, it just made more sense to kind of get into coaching, and I found that new passion that I absolutely loved. And, it was one of those ways for me to stay in the sport, obviously, without totally, you know, playing and going through with that. But, it was a great experience. The 2 years were awesome. Got to play in St. Louis in front of some friends and family there. And funny enough, there's still some fans that show up whenever we play Lindenwood. So pretty cool to kind of see that, still in fruition, but, at the same time, definitely miss playing.
Well, of course, that's what every hockey coach says is the best part of their careers is their playing days.
Yeah.
Before we get into your coaching stuff, I just wanted to ask, what role did the USA Hockey, camps and program play in your development and in your career? Because one of my analysis has shown is that the better you do in USA Hockey, the more likely you're going to get recruited. Basically, there's a high correlation between the two, and obviously it makes sense because if you're one of the best players in USA, obviously you're going to get highly recruited. But what's your perspective in terms of your experience with USA Hockey, both as a player and now you've also helped out at national camps?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I was kind of a late bloomer. Like I never made a U18 team or anything like that. And then fortunately, BC took a chance on me, set me up for success there and played with some amazing players, Andy Nassis, Dana Trevino, Alex Carpenter, Haley Scrupa, Megan Keller. So playing with them obviously elevated my game and pushed me to be, even more of an impact player than I think, personally I probably thought I could have been. But they really showcased me in a way that I can kind of complement them and then also be a goal scorer at times. But through that freshman year, I think that's when I really got pulled into USA hockey. And so even on the recruiting side, you have to bet on potential. Like I was definitely one of those kids that if people only recruited at U18 events, like I probably wouldn't be playing with the people I was playing with and getting recruited to where I went. So I think it's definitely a great way to showcase skill in the summer and allow those players to play together. But also knowing there are going to be a lot of players that they might peak a little bit later, and so I think for me it's just a mentality thing in terms of when I'm recruiting now that there are some players like me that are out there that just haven't reached their potential yet, but um, no, USA Hockey's been great. Like even now being on the coaching side, Kristen Sagart is awesome. She's from the West Coast too, and so you always have these people kind of in your corner and can guide you with whatever you need. But ton of great resources with USA Hockey.
Perfect. Now, I'm totally getting ahead of myself in terms of getting into the recruiting part at the end of the podcast. But you mentioned seeing the potential of a player. I think that's still worth exploring. How do
Mhm.
you now, when players are 15, 16, or 17, how do you say to yourself, okay, well, maybe they're not the best, maybe they're not an under 18 player today,
Mhm.
but I could see their potential 3 or 4 years from now if they continue to develop. Like, how hard is that to see that trajectory from a coaching perspective?
Yeah, no, it's really difficult. I think that that's where you see some teams within 5 years of a staff getting there. That's where the trajectory goes up. So, like, even thinking about, Jeff and Kumi at Penn State, just the way that they were able to recruit, you can see the program increase and get better and better. So, I think a lot of it for me is, I watch their eyes. You could tell a lot with just the way that these players are approaching the game. Are they playing with their eyes up at an early age? You can always teach stick handling, shooting, skating might be a little bit more difficult to teach at our level, but at the same time, like if you have the vision, you can kind of teach some of the other things along the way. And then the other thing I'd say is just the passion behind it. Some kids have that passion, they have that grit, and they have that want and need to get better and be successful. So I think truly like within our process, we look for a lot of things. Obviously on the ice, you have to have skill to play at that certain level, but there are certain things we can teach along the way. But I think passion for me, like it, you can't teach it. It's either you want it or, you kind of want it. And those players that really do want it, they're going to put the time and effort in every single day to reach their goals and ultimately hopefully reach our program goals too.
Gotcha. So I'm assuming then talking to players actually makes a big difference then, and
Absolutely.
highly influences that trajectory that you're projecting on some players that you think maybe still under the radar.
Definitely.
Excuse me. Now let's move on to the coaching side of things. So while you're still a player, you were also entering the coaching ranks. Maybe just talk about that process.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Out of college, I was an economics major, and so for whatever reason, I was like, I'm gonna work a 9 to 5. I'm gonna go into more of an economics, work within like stats and analytics and stuff. And then Tony Miano, I played with her in college. One of my best friends, she took over Naha. She went to Naha, and so she took it over with after Bill and Jesse and moved it down to Massachusetts. And that summer, she was like, "Hey, I need another coach for that Labor Day tournament. Do you mind helping out?" And I was like, "Absolutely. That'll be a lot of fun." So I went up with her to Burlington at the time, coached both the 16s and the 19s, so Naha red and white, and like completely fell in love with coaching. Oddly enough, I coach two kids that are at Penn State right now, so Carly Garcia and Tessa Janicki. So it's kind of cool to come full circle with them, but absolutely fell in love with it. Like those kids who are there, they want to be there for the right reasons. They want to reach college hockey, national teams. You can kind of just see that passion. And so I think that that's what ultimately drew me to coaching in the beginning. And so I canceled my interviews with the companies Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and went right into coaching from there. Money was a little tight, so that's kind of where Milton came into the picture. Ryan Stone was amazing and let me help out with them Tuesday, Thursday nights, and most Saturdays and Wednesdays for the games. So again, it's just the connections and people helping you out, and just gaining more and more experience, I think was huge for me.
Perfect. Now, I'm sure Tony really appreciated the extra help because they always need to be having coaches, especially since the program's been growing so much. All
Mhm.
right. And so now, how did you end up with Mel recruiting you to Brown?
Yeah, cool story. So when I was going through my recruiting process, Providence was really, really high on my list, and the main reason was because of Mel. You could just, again, it's the passion, the loyalty that she has, and just like that overall care that I think she had for me through the recruiting process. You could totally care that she wanted me to be the best version of myself, player. And so that's what drew me to Providence, to be completely honest. And so when things didn't work out there and I went to Boston College, you could just that she's one of those people that is kind of in your corner. And after that, after 2 years at Naha, she called and said that she's taking over Brown and would love to have me as an assistant coach. And so I hopped on that immediately. I knew that that was someone that I could learn right under, and teach me the ropes in terms of Ivy League school. I obviously was a scholarship kid, and so it was cool to get to know that side of things and understand how the Ivy Leagues work. And those players were amazing. Like, I absolutely loved it there, learning under Mel every single day. Justin Simpson is absolutely amazing with any video system. Like, I learned a lot of my pre-scouts and video work with them. And just to see, how to turn a program around, and truly build that new foundation for them to lean on. So it was a great experience for me. I wasn't looking to leave at all when Penn State came up, but Brown was an amazing experience for me, and something I'm definitely grateful for.
Gotcha. So yeah, you spent at least 10 years in New England. What made you pick up and move to the middle of Pennsylvania after that amount of time?
Yeah, I think for me it was getting back to kind of the scholarship side of things. I'm a big sports person, and so I think the idea of Penn State having 31 varsity sports teams was huge for me. Kind of small town atmosphere, and so the campus is the heart of the city, and so everything kind of evolves around the academics here, the athletics here. But I think most importantly, it's like you could see that that team has something special, and I kind of wanted to see how I could help this whole program, really start to take that to the next level. So I think for me, it was an easy decision to kind of get back to the scholarship things and understand that now, being on the coaching side of things. But um, yeah, I mean, the chance to be able to work with Carly and Tessa again, I think kind of made it an easy decision.
Perfect. All right, we're going to get into scholarships a little bit more very shortly, but we do need to talk about just Penn State. Maybe just tell folks about the school, about State College, what it's like to go to school there, the academics, and then we'll get into the facilities and things like that.
Yeah, so Big Ten school. So obviously athletics is really important for this university. Academics is amazing. There's over 200 and I think 75 majors they could choose from. And so, you could truly go into bio and then branch off into whatever you want from there. So there's a lot of flexibility. Smeal Business School is one of the top in the country. We have a lot of kids in the MBA program right now with them. Um, 40,000 students here. The town of State College is 40,000. So truly in the summers, it's a nice quiet town. Students come back, and that is basically the town. So everything revolves around Penn State. It's an extremely safe environment because everything is around basically the university. Everyone has a tie, whether you're a teacher, you're a coach, you own a restaurant downtown. Everyone's either an alumni of the university or somehow connected. And so you definitely get that community feel in State College. They call it Happy Valley for a reason. And it's one of those places that I truly enjoy going to the work every day. Thon is one of the coolest things that I think that our student athletes are able to be a part of. So it's a Penn State run organization for pediatric cancer. So every year there's a 46-hour basically dance marathon where they raise money for pediatric cancer. And I believe last year they raised over $17 million for it. So absolutely incredible what the students can do here at Penn State and just how much passion there is behind everything.
Yeah, and the hockey program is relatively new,
Mhm.
thanks to Kim and Terry Pagula, who also own the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres hockey team. They basically started and funded the entire program, plus the arena. Maybe just talk about their involvement and how they've helped the program. And by the way, their daughter just lost at the U.S. Open tennis championship in the final, so she's also a professional tennis player. But maybe just talk about the Pagulas and the role that they play with the team.
Yeah, definitely. They're instrumental in everything. Starting from their $102 million donation to form the rank and basically pull both of our programs up to speed and get us D1. So we're 12 years old for the Division 1 program on the women's side, and so relatively new. Still putting the pieces together and truly building into one of those major national championship contenders. But the Pagulas are amazing. Really hoping for the health of both of them, especially Kim. She had some health concerns the past couple of years, so we're very connected with them. Even when Jess is playing tennis, like we'll have it on in the locker room, and you can definitely feel the passion that our kids have behind it too. So there's definitely a lot of community feel to it, but nothing would be possible without them. So we're really fortunate to have them.
Perfect. All right. So I'm glad that they're still deeply involved with the team. So
Definitely.
that's great to hear. Now let's just talk about your conference. You have a new name. You have a new team coming. Maybe just talk about what it's like playing in now the AHA.
Yeah, yeah. So the AHA is great. It allows us to have some flexibility with our schedule too, in terms of, having obviously great conference competition. They're extremely strong. A lot of Canadians, a couple Europeans now from Lindenwood. So we have great games, and they're always physical, fast paced, and I think it challenges us in ways that, it pays off later on too. But the other part of that is having 14 out of conference games for us. It gives us flexibility to play UConn, Northeastern, Minnesota, Cornell, hopefully Ohio State and Clarkson this year. And so it gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of, I was telling you before the podcast, but we'll scrimmage RIT this Sunday and then we don't see them for another 2 months. And so it allows us to kind of have a really balanced schedule in terms of challenging ourselves out of conference, but then, really getting into the conference games and honing in on skills and systems and trying to play complete 60-minute games at that point.
Gotcha. So now one of your co-coaches, Allison Coomey, who's also on this podcast twice, is now the head coach at Delaware. How concerned are you about her knowing all your secrets when you actually do play each other next year?
I know we have some fun face-offs, so I think we might have to put those in our back pocket when we play them. But no, she's absolutely incredible. Her and her wife Kelly are two of the best people I think I've ever met. So it's hard. We lost a good one in her, but at the same time, I think Delaware, they chose probably the best head coach they could have chosen for that role.
Gotcha. Now, so there's only 7 teams in your conference. 8 is a nice round number. Will Michigan be that 8th team?
I don't know, fingers crossed. I do think we just need more women's ice hockey across the board. So hopefully they get pulled in and shifts things around, but more the better.
Okay, and actually, if Michigan gets a team, do you think there'll actually just be a Big Ten conference, and that you'll get Wisconsin and Minnesota, you guys, and hopefully Michigan State will get a team and things like that. So do
Yeah,
you think
that's
they'll
the
actually
hope.
form their own conference? Give us the inside information. Tell us what the future looks like.
I know, I wish I had more. This is just wishful thinking, but no, I hope that if Michigan gets it, then Michigan State wouldn't let them be the only Michigan team to have D1 sports. So, hopefully they get some women's hockey in there.
Gotcha. So I watched a lot of the Big Ten Network last year, and obviously watched a lot of the WCHA. But because even though you're not in the WCHA, you still get a huge amount of coverage, and so I get to watch your games there as well. How much do you get a check from the Big Ten Network, and how much does that help your team?
Yeah, I think just with the evolution of, college sports in general, like having the Big Ten revenue and, with Oregon, all those schools getting pulled into it now, I do think it's really going to help us. Our athletic support from our athletic director is unbelievable. Pat Graft has done such a great job of coming in. And, I think that for us, we feel really comfortable with where we're at within college athletics and making sure that we're supported. But at the same time, like he is all about winning and wants to make sure that we have all the resources we need to make sure that we can compete and ultimately reach that national championship goal.
Gotcha. Okay, so now you're gonna get. I'm gonna ask you my toughest question. So you got great financial backers from the Pulas. You got great money from the Big Ten, and now you've been around for 13 years. So you're not, you're not a new team. While you guys have done well, you won your conference last year. Why aren't you even more dominant? Why aren't you persistently a top 10 team? I know you've recruited a whole bunch of 5-star players. You got under 18 players coming to you, but to me, you having watched you or tracked you for the last 4 years, to me, you're still not at the level that I think you could be at given the resources that you have.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's all part of the process, and 12 years is still a pretty young team in terms of the program. If you look at some other programs that way too, but I think the way that Jeff and Kumi have recruited, we have a goalie coach on staff with the Ben Halford, so we have all the pieces. Obviously, Kumi is now with Delaware, but we have a really, really good foundation here. I think we have the right kids in the locker room, and the freshmen this year are a very elite group, and so they fit in really well with our returners, 14 upperclassmen. And so I think that this year, it's consistently gotten better. And so I think that that is truly our goal. You just have to keep progressing and trust the process, trust your recruiting, and keep developing kids. We don't pull a ton from the portal, to be completely honest. Like, we want to have our group that we recruit, and we want to develop them and make sure that those are our kids, and they can trust our word on that. So I think for us, it's just trusting the process and knowing that we're going to keep getting better and better. And then, you know, it's it's kind of scary how good I think we can be.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. But now I am going to, since you brought up the topic, and we're going to talk about the transfer portal. You basically lost an awesome player last year to Ohio State. And that left Tessa Janicki basically being by far your leading scorer, that you brought over from Naha. Like, how are you going to get more scoring, evenly distributed across your team for this coming season?
Yeah, yeah. It's again, it's all part of the process. Like, you can look at our 12 forwards right now and piece them any way you want. And I think we're pretty strong. So it's all the process of building the right locker room. We lost some key players last year, and even Maeve going to Stonehill, like, that kid is a dream to coach. She's an absolute rock star in terms of team culture and playing her role. Carrie Burns the same way. Like, that kid is the ultimate locker room kid. And so I think for us, it's continuing to find the right people for our locker room. And that just gets into the recruiting. Like, when you recruit now, it just puts more onus and emphasis on making sure that you're finding the right kids that love Penn State for every reason. It's not all about hockey. There's going to be days where you love it, days that are harder than others. And so at the end of the day, if they love the school, if they love the staff, the hockey, the academics, we're in a really good spot. But with the transfer portal, like, at the end of the day, life is about finding happiness, and sometimes, there's a right fit somewhere else. And so we definitely understand that, but at the same time, like, we want to make sure that we're recruiting people for the right reasons and making sure that we find kind of a home in them and they find a home in us.
Gotcha. I know what you're saying there, but I know what you're not saying there as well. So I'm going to leave it at that. Let's move on to related to what you talked about earlier, scholarships. So once again, we talked about how, the large number of resources for Penn State. What is the program's current thinking on 18 flexible scholarships versus 26 fixed scholarships that's going to be available to you next year?
Yeah, we're a small team. I think the way that Jeff likes to run the program is we want to stay around 21, 22 players. And so at the end of the day, like, right now we have 19 skaters and 3 goalies, and we're really comfortable with that number. So I don't think things will necessarily change for us within the scholarship realm, but that's kind of our number, and we want a small roster and have everyone come in ready to compete and find ice time. And again, challenge yourself and work through mistakes, but making sure that you're getting the opportunities to develop.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, great. That answers the question. So I do want to go back to something that you said earlier, which is you wanted to go back to a scholarship school. What were the differences between, like, an Ivy League school or a non-scholarship school and a scholarship school that made you want to go back to a scholarship school?
Yeah, I think for me, The sports, I think in general, Brown was awesome in terms of their athletics, but having the ability to go to a Penn State where, Beaver Stadium has 107,000 people, like that was something that was like, wow, that's amazing. Like that's definitely kind of who I am. Academics obviously are important, but I think for me, it just felt more natural to be kind of at a scholarship school and allow people that opportunity that I was fortunate enough to have when I was going through school too. But again, with the Ivy League schools, like they have incredible resources for the financial aid and departments like that. So you definitely still found a lot of amazing players, a lot of amazing families, and genuine people. But yeah, for me, I think getting back to that side, especially the athletic side for me was a big jump for me and something that I definitely value.
Gotcha. All right. So let's now go down the recruiting path. So by my math, you are full on goalies for like the next 6 years. So from what I can see, you already have 3 commits coming over the next 2 years, and therefore replacing your current goalies already in the system. But it sounds like that you still need some players for the 2026 year. For by my math, you probably need 2 forwards or 1D that at least have not been announced yet. So maybe just tell us where you are in the recruiting process for
Yeah,
2026s.
we feel really good with where we're at. Right now, it's kind of letting kids go through their process too. We're not really a school that's gonna timeline and kind of make them make a decision before they're ready. For us, like we want people to see their options and come back to us and say, "Hey, we still love Penn State." Um, Personally, I think just with the transfer portal and how easy it is to transfer, you need to find kids that, again, will still come back and say, I love everything about Penn State. I don't want someone after 1 or 2 years saying, wow, I wish I visited that school when I was going through the process. And so I think for us, it's important to kind of give the kids the opportunity to go through their process and form relationships with the staffs, get on campus, meet some of the teammates that they potentially could be playing with. That stuff's really important. I think looking for a home for 4 years, but then also like the alumni association is obviously incredibly important. And so I think giving the kids the time that they need to make decisions. But yeah, right now I think we feel like we're in a really good spot with that class.
Perfect. All right. So you're giving time to some players to make decisions, explore all their options. I do have a question for you that I have for a few schools, which is you actually had a commit like in the month of June after the June 15th date. I don't like talking about individual players, so that's not relevant. What I want to understand is how does a player get to the point where they are that sure that they want to commit so early in the process?
Yeah, funny enough, it happened last year too. And so I think with us, giving the opportunities for these kids to get to know us a little bit through our camps is really important. And so for both of those players, they came to our camps, they got to know us as a staff, they saw the arena, they saw the facilities. And so from that June 15th to August 1st date, obviously that's a big like relationship building time. And then you get into the on-campus visits after August 1st. For those 2 players in particular, like, they had already seen the facilities and everything and gotten on campus and felt really comfortable with that, and then also kinda had those relationships built through coming to camp. And we kinda did our background on them. Are they good kids? Are they good families? Talking to their coaches that way, and so we kinda had all the information we needed, they had the information they needed, and it was kinda a mutual thing from there.
Perfect. All right. So would you recommend players come to your camp if they're interested in Penn State?
I would say go to, yeah, as many camps as you can. I think that's a great way, not only for us, like obviously we'd love to have people on campus for camps, but you get to know the staff, you get to know the location, the ranks, I think there's a lot of really great opportunities out there just going to camps.
Gotcha. And I'm just curious, are you allowed to reach out to either parents or players to invite players to camps before their June 15th deadline? Like, are you saying, hey, we have a camp, we think it would be great if you came to came to our camp. Are you allowed to do that?
Yeah, so we can't send questionnaires out anymore, and so that's one of the new legislations that got passed. But I believe, and we still have compliance meetings for this, but I believe we're still able to send out like invites. So we'll do that, and then also utilize like the club coaches in the neighborhoods and even Toronto area, kind of send it out to them too if they want to blast it through their association. But yeah, for the most part, it's on the website. It's pretty much everywhere, but it's definitely an easy email.
So I get the inbound thing that that,
Yeah.
that parents can do. I'm curious about the outbound because that's what parents want to know. It's like, hey, does this mean that you might be interested in my daughter, kind of a thing,
Right.
and therefore is it worth the because going to any individual camp is expensive. Because
Hmm.
you,
Absolutely.
especially because you probably don't live in state college, most of your recruits. So it costs money to get there, and then obviously it costs money to attend. So if they're being invited, they understand. Okay, well that's a good leading indicator that you might at least be interested in talking to the player. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, like, at the end of the day, at least you're getting on a college campus, and then, whoever it is, they might just start to think like, "Hey, this is cool being in a city or cool being in, more of a rural area." So, regardless if it is Penn State or not, at least you're starting to kinda get some information about college and what things look like.
yeah, and having a frame of reference as to what you
Definitely.
like and what you don't like. All right, last two questions. So, what do you look for when you're recruiting?
Yeah, I think for me, skating definitely sticks out, and then kinda like I was talking earlier, just their hockey IQ and playing with the puck. So if they have their eyes up, can you make little slip plays and find these lanes that might be there before they open up to normal people? And so trying to read, do they have a grasp on the hockey IQ part, and seeing if they can make plays and react off plays. But I would say outside of that is so important to be a good person. And I'm sure that you hear that from a number of coaches. Like there are a lot of great staffs out there, and our biggest thing is finding great people. We're a sport that we play a really long season, and so finding the right people in that locker room, it makes a whole season and truly makes it where you want to come to the rink every single day and you want to come to early ice skills and you want to invest in that culture. So I think for us, it's a lot of us doing homework on the individual, their families, and just making sure that, we know what we're getting and we want kind of those genuine families that have the right intentions.
Perfect. So I've seen you out on the recruiting trail on a couple of events, and there are kids who are coming up to their June 15th date, or even a year away from it, or I guess it would be almost a year and a half. What's your advice for those players and parents who are just about to enter, that process of being able to talk to coaches? What's your perspective on how to approach the recruiting process?
Yeah, I think being organized is obviously really important. And so kind of taking notes and knowing who you're talking to and maybe a little bit on their background, but even before that, like the development of that individual is so crucial. And so I think right now some kids are so wrapped up in doing all these camps in preparation for it. But in reality, to like showcase well at some of these camps, you need to be developing and you need to be working out and getting in the weight room and investing in your skill or your strength. And so, yes, June 15th is obviously an important day. It's an exciting day for a lot of people and for some it's maybe a little bit more quiet. And so I think whatever it is, all the processes are different, but focusing on that development through June 15th and on before June 15th, it's really important to continue on that process of developing. And then when you do get these showcase invites, you're showcasing well and you're putting your best foot forward. So I would probably say less camps through the summer and truly focus on, being a normal kid at times, go on vacation, play other sports, play pickleball, and truly enjoy the summer. But, invest in your skill, your strength. And then when those opportunities come, and then June 15th, I think will get a little bit easier.
Awesome. McKenna, I want to thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for sharing all of us about your playing days, your coaching journey. Obviously, lots of advice on the recruiting side of things, and obviously learning all this stuff about Penn State and how things actually work there. So, best of luck this weekend as you start your exhibition season, and wish you the best of luck for the whole year.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it.
I really want to thank McKenna for coming on the podcast. She shared some great information about her hockey playing career, the growth of Penn State women's hockey, and of course, lots of recruiting insights. You can connect with McKenna on the Penn State website or via her Champs app profile. Links to both are in the show notes.